Welcome to America's Heroes Group.
And welcome back to America's Heroes Group, our roundtable with sponsor and partner RHF Ninja Warrior Competitions. December is AIDS Awareness and National Human Rights Month. Today is Saturday, December 10th, 2022. Our host is Cliff Kelley. I'm Sean Clifford, the co-host, Army National Guard veteran. Our digital media producer is Ivan Ortega with Scouts Arnold Productions. And last but not least, our executive producer is Glenda Smith. And we have our partner on the line, Mr. Darren Jeffrey. He's a founding board member of RHF and also the original course creator, builder for the TV show American Ninja Warrior on NBC. He has brought us a panelist, Josh Woehr, U.S. Army Sergeant Major and White House Fellow. We're going to talk about RHF Ninja Warrior Competitions, the purpose, mission, and agenda for the upcoming calendar year of 2023. It's about that time. So how are you guys doing?
Doing wonderful. How are you, Sean?
Doing great, doing great.
Yeah, Sean, doing good. Thanks for having us.
My pleasure, my pleasure. So tell us, give us an introduction real quick, Darren, about Josh, and let us know what is going on for 2023.
Absolutely, absolutely. Very exciting to be back on the show and being a co-host with you. It's quite an honor. Jumping into it, Josh and I met about 8.5 years ago in Hawaii. I was teaching a class for some of the military folks that I get to work with, and Josh was one of the students of the class, and we just hit it off from day one and roll the clock forward. Here we are today, 8 years later. So Josh Woehr has been an inspiration and a mentor to me as far as taking an idea and getting it to delivering it, getting it to fruition. And so.
So
Josh.
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was just going to ask Josh if he wanted to jump in and talk a little bit about when him and I had met.
Yeah, I think thanks for having me, Sean. I appreciate it. Darren, same here. I think the funnest story about how we met is within 24 hours of meeting Darren, he had knocked me unconscious.
What?
Yeah, exactly. And yet here we are 8 years later, we're friends.
Best way to meet somebody.
We were in Hawaii where he was teaching us, rappelling, how to create rope systems, how to move gear or casualties in case you're in a mountainous environment. So this is military training we're doing. We're rappelling down the face of a mountain, kind of like a waterfall coming, and I'm probably 15 feet up from the bottom, and a rock sheared off. The rope sheared a rock off. Thankfully, I was wearing a helmet. Hit me upside down unconscious, and there comes Darren running to flip me upright and keep me alive. So I'm in debt to Darren for that. So that's a fun story about meeting Darren. The truth is he's been a great friend ever since then.
I used to love rappelling. It was so fun back in the day. But so Josh, tell me, why did you join the military?
Oh, yeah, that's a great. All right, why did I join the military? I tried to join the military a few times. I guess I'll briefly share those. So the first time I tried to join the military, I think I did about 8 or 10 weeks of school my junior year of high school. I just wasn't having it at the time. I was young and immature. You'll probably see some patterns here about, as we talk about how the military has really helped me grow and mature as a person, as an individual. But I dropped out of high school. I went to the recruiter's office. I went to every recruiter other than the Navy. I had decided based on a stepdad who was in the Navy, I didn't want to be in the Navy. That said, I went to every other recruiter's office, said I want to be in special operations. The Army was the only one that provided a contract that allowed you to at least try out for special operations. So I tried to do that, and then when they realized I was 16 and I didn't have a parent that was gonna sign for me, they realized I didn't have a high school diploma, I didn't have a GED. The recruiter said, "See you later." So,
wow.
So I actually went back to school, dropped out again after started my senior year. Tried again. They told me no. I went back to school, finished school, and then I joined the military. I basically graduated 3 weeks later. I was in the Army. So that's the when of joining the military. I think I graduated in May, and by or June, and by July I was in the military. I was at Fort Benning, starting basic training. Why I joined the military, I think there's lots of reasons why I joined the military. As I reflect and look back, I can tell you, as someone who's been in the military for 24 years, I would say, though I didn't realize it at the time, I was trying to prove something to myself. Another reason I joined the military is I was just trying to get out of the environment that I was in as a young person. obviously, some good influences, some bad influences, but I really didn't see a way forward that was successful. I think I always had this thought or this feeling as a teenager, like, hey, there's something more, but I couldn't figure out what that was. And so for me, it was the military I was smart enough to know I needed to grow up and I needed to mature. And I felt like the military would provide me that opportunity more than anything else. So that's just a quick synopsis of that.
Wow. You kind of touched on a lot of the same reasons why I joined the military. I can relate to a lot of what you said, except for the part trying to join at 16. It was going through your mind at 16 if you're trying to join that, get into the Army, the Special Forces, no less. But the thing of it is that, there's an acronym we all know in the military, particularly if you're in the U.S. Army. If you spell U.S. Army backwards, it's a different acronym. We won't say the acronym on on national TV, international radio and such. But why did you stay in the military?
Why did I stay in the military? I joined the military before 9/11. So 1999, I joined the military. We talked about why I joined. And I think what I found those first couple years before 9/11 is there were some things that were awesome about the military that I loved. That first, it was relationships. The relationships that I had with my teammates, with the people that I trained with, I worked with, I lived with. You build really strong relationships. The other one is I really got to start pushing myself and challenging myself, figuring out what are my limits physically, mentally. Where do I start to fail or break down, or where do I thrive? So those are some of the reasons that I was already enjoying the military. I found success really for the first time in my life in the military. It was the first time I was successful at stuff. And part of that was because I really had this new slate to start with. But then 9/11 happened, and all of a sudden my reasons for being in the military changed. I think, for all of us who remember, I think everybody can tell you, people my age at least can tell you where they were on September 11th when they heard about the towers falling in New York. I was out in the field doing a live fire exercise. We had been out there for a couple of days, and someone had come out to refuel us with some drinks and food, and we heard it on the radio. But all of a sudden, I found myself. So that was September of 2001. By the end of September, I found myself deployed in support of the initial invasion to Afghanistan, and then that just continued from there. All of a sudden, you started to see purpose and calling in what you did. You started to see the people to your left and your right, those same people you had built those strong relationships with. Like, there was different sacrifices that happened. Ultimately, like the ultimate sacrifice, somebody giving their life, but even more than that, the desire to say, like, hey, I'm going to go put myself on the line, for something bigger than myself. So the reason I stayed in the Army, and the reason why I'm still in the Army today, is it turned into a calling. It turned into a purpose. America and the values that America have, the right to life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. Like, not everybody has that. Like, and to be able to have a small part with this group of men to your left and right, or women to your left and right, that can go after that you can hopefully create a positive influence or positive change. That's why I've stayed in the military as long as I have.
Wow, that's amazing. So, Darren, do you have a question? Darren?
Yeah, I wonder if we lost him.
Oh, no, I'm here. Sorry, guys. Yeah, no, you can. So exciting to hear Josh talk about it firsthand. After him and I had met a few weeks later, I ended up back in North Carolina at Fort Bragg, and I was going to do some follow-up training there. And Josh invited me to come over to his home after work and meet his family. And they essentially rolled out, after the kids all went to bed, they rolled out this blueprint of some property that they had purchased already. And Josh had said, hey, I want to start a nonprofit that helps strengthen military families and breeds resiliency in the military families. And so RHF was born, and so I'd love for Josh to talk about, Josh is the founder of RHF. And so I'd love to just ask Josh, in your words, what is RHF?
Yeah. Thanks, Darren. Yeah, I don't think Darren knew when he came to dinner that night that we were going to pitch him on a nonprofit and then ask him to help us start it. And then, 8 years later, he'd still be working every day to try and help us meet that mission. I think the best place to start first is I have to just share like the namesake of RHF. So RHF is the Rick Harima Foundation. So Rick Harima is one of those men that I talked about earlier. We talked about the relationship and one of the reasons you stayed in the military. Well, Rick was one of those guys. He was a brother. We're going through the Special Forces qualification course together. That's where we met. And he was really the first person that I met in the military that he really made like working on, like I was still learning my values, like what were my own personal values at the time. I was still working that out as a young soldier and as a young man. And then I meet this guy who he's better at everything than me. He's faster, he's more fit, he's smarter, he's better at all his military tasks, but yet he's the most humble person I've met. And he was the kind of person that 10 different people would say like that's my best friend. Like he just was a phenomenal person and a phenomenal example of really the values of the military, or the values of, that I aspire to, which is to put others first, to care for others, to be excellent in what you do. So I have to share who Rick was. A couple of things. Rick loved NASCAR. He was he's a big gearhead. We always had a vehicle that we were working on. He loved golf. We'd sit and we'd hit the pitch and wedge in the middle of the little barracks courtyard every day at lunch. But so that's what the Rick Harima Foundation, we named it after him. Rick was killed in 2006 in Iraq when we were deployed over there. And so it's just a way to honor him and really the value that he had. So the reason we started RHF is, I can remember having conversations with Rick when we were both single soldiers. The conversation was like, hey, one day we know we want to have a family. And we asked ourselves, like, hey, when you have that family, do you think you'll stay in the military? And I don't think either of us knew the answer. I think the response was like, I hope so, or I think I will, but we didn't know. Well, then fast forward, 3-4 years after Rick was killed, I got married. I had my first child pretty soon after that. And then really in the first 4 or 5 years of marriage, I think I had deployed at least once a year, 4 or 5 times. I deployed the first time 3 months after I got married. And we just, this cycle that really all the people in the military kind of live with and families live with. And we just realized this was getting hard. It was hard to serve with excellence as a soldier, and it was hard to do family well. At that point, when we started Rick's Place, my wife was pregnant with our third child. And so we started Rick's Place because we wanted to keep serving in the military, but yet we didn't want our family to have to suffer because of that, because there's these competing values and priorities. You have the mission, which the military values, but then you have family, which the military values as well, but they compete, and one is more of an espoused value and one is more of an enacted value. So our thought was, how do we come alongside the military? How do we strengthen families so that, we can continue to serve? And this wasn't just us, right? This is what we saw with our peers and our friends. And so we said, hey, let's start a place so that the time that we do have, we don't get a ton of time. We think of time, you think of it as quantity or quality. We don't get quantity because we're constantly gone, whether that's for training or deployments. We said, let's take the time we do have, let's make it quality. And so we started Rick's Place, and the whole idea was to create a place where families could really have fun together and could do relationship together. And so now we've got 50 acres, right next to Fort Bragg, which is the biggest military base in the world by population of service members. And the whole idea is just a place to go have fun, to do relationship, to get that shot in the arm when you're just coming back from a deployment or you've been out training for a couple of weeks, in this fun place to play and do life and then build relationships. So that's why we started it. It was because we wanted to keep serving, but we wanted to also do it while we did family well.
Wow, I think that's really amazing. And you kind of answered my next question, but I want to get a little more deeper into it. So the Rick Harima Foundation, what is unique, would you say, that separates that veteran service organization across other veteran service organizations? What is that crystallizing thing that is different about RHF?
Yeah, I think there's a few things that really are unique to RHF, and the first in my mind is it's sole, our sole focus is active duty military families. There's a lot of programs and things out there that support the service member or support a veteran while he's transitioning. There's a lot of programs that support, injured guys that have gotten injured or have TBIs. There's resources for all of that. There's not as many resources for the family, and kind of like our slogan at Rick's Place strong family, strong military, strong nation. From lived experience, I truly believe that our military is the strongest when our families are the strongest. More than 50% of service members are married. So if you can keep that family healthy and strong and thriving, then guess what? Your military is stronger and thriving. And we all know if you have a strong military, your nation is stronger for that. So that's one thing that is a distinguisher. It is our focus and our core person we want to serve are the military families that are currently serving, currently deploying. And it's not that we don't love service members, like we do, and we want service members out there, but we're focused on them as a whole and as a unit. Another thing that's different is there's a lot of organizations that do phenomenal stuff, and you can go really get like a shot in the arm, or like this get a week away and you can do a vacation or do something really fun, some kind of outdoor adventure, but it's not where service members live. So we said when we started, we want to take that same concept, which is so valuable, which creates resiliency, which creates strong connections, but we want to put it where people live. And so that's why we did it at Fort Bragg. So that's the other thing that's unique is we went to the military base and we said, we're going to do it here. So it's something that's a part of everyday life. It's not something that you have to plan ahead and get a week of vacation and link up schedules and coordinate everything and also do it when kids are out of school. No, you can do this every week or, every day if you wanted to. And then the last thing is we really wanted it to be about something positive. And we said, Rick's Place is not there to heal or to fix service members or families. Like, we believe that the military family is inherently strong. They're inherently committed. They're, service members, in my opinion, are some of the greatest leaders our nation has. And we said, no, we're here really just to come alongside and to provide a place for families to do what they do naturally, which is to build relationship and build community. And we want them to know that it's just somebody that is alongside them. So soldiers doing it for soldiers, service members built it for service members out of a need. But in my opinion, that's what makes Rick's Place unique. And really, it's why we've had so much success to this point.
Wow, damn, that really, before I take it back to Darren, Josh, that is so amazing to me. I mean, that makes me, I had a cold before I came in here. I think I was going with the flu. You knocked it right out of me. Brother, you knocked it right out of me with your story. That is so profound. I mean, really, I'm holding back tears, to be honest with you. I mean, I think that is so critical and so important that you touch the souls of so many people doing what you're doing, and in a way, it's a lot of hard work putting together what you have to put together, but it's such a simple thing when you think about it. But it's so important, and it's so hard to do. It's simple, but it's hard. It's hard to execute, but it's simple in concept.
Yeah, I agree, Sean. I mean, we just went back. I'm up in D.C. right now, and we just went back last weekend. And the first place my kids wanted to go was Rick's Place. Like that's the thing. Like I'm living it. It's a place that creates that feeling and that connection for us as a military family. So thanks for that,
Darren. What you got for us?
Well, it's so amazing because when Josh sat me down that first night at his home, and they pulled out the plans and said, "Hey, we want to start a nonprofit," and I've consulted lots and lots of folks in business over the years, and I have been taught to as a knee-jerk reaction, if somebody wants to start a nonprofit organization, try to discourage them. That's always been, my mentors have always said, you try to discourage that, and instead point them and say, so I suggested to Josh, hey, why don't we take this and go find an existing nonprofit and help power that brand? And Josh said, Darren, there's nothing out there like what we're doing. There's nothing out there at all. And so that's where, and then now you've got my attention. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're going to do something that's going to move the needle here. And so I asked a few business questions. I said, well, how far along in the establishment of the 501c3 have you gotten? He says, well, we have state approval. And I said, well, that's usually pretty easy to get. Have you gotten your federal approval? Federal approval normally takes about 18 months. Josh, then a few weeks after that meeting, Josh ended up deploying, and he was gone overseas. And we stayed in touch, and he would message me periodically, hey, I'm working on the RHF concept. I'm working on it. And then all of a sudden I get an email one day saying, Darren, we got our federal approval. In less than 4 months, while he was on deployment, meaning working nights overseas during the day, working on RHF, pulls off a federal approval for 501c3 in under 4 months. That is phenomenal. I've never heard of anything like that. And he said, Darren, would you give 1 year as a board member? I said, man, I am a lifer. And now roll the clock forward. All the work that Josh does professionally for his military career, all the work that he does in his family's grown. He hasn't shared that with you yet, but we'll get there. His family has grown since these days. He was the founder of RHF. He then turned his back and went across a broad range of his network and found all these amazing other board members, some of which I'm sure we'll have on the show here shortly. But, so in my mind, he created more work for himself, more work than just having the family and strengthening the family and having an awesome military career. He went and created a third leg, which is RHF, which is going to support and strengthen all the other families that get involved. And so my question to Josh is, hey, how do you do family and military mixed so well with the burden of the RHF network all around you?
Yeah, well, first, Darren, thanks for your kind words. I don't know that I do it well, but I can tell you that we're constantly trying to improve. I think my immediate response, Darren, is I do it in partnership with my wife. We have been purposeful in doing that. But if I take a step back and I think about this from what are the things that you have to fight against or that make it hard, and then how do you combat that so you can strive to do both well? I think one is community. You have to allow yourself to be in community. For us, I'm a Christian. I've got a community that's around my church, and those have been a lot of the people that showed up to help when we needed people with chainsaws and axes to clear out the property. The next is my community in the military and the relationships we've built with the people that I've served with, and doing life with them. And then I think how do you create that community for yourself? Within our family, how do we create a culture for our family? And I think where I'll kind of step back and I have to think about this, and this is something you have to fight against it, and it goes into your identity. I think one of the biggest challenges of serving in the military, and so many people want to come up and tell you thank you for your service. They want to tell you I can't believe you've done it for as long as you have, or to your point, man, I can't believe you started a nonprofit. I think, how do you stay grounded in who you are as a person? If I would allow myself to be I'm a Green Beret, that's an awesome thing, and I could wrap my identity around that and make decisions based on that. And if I do, my family's not gonna thrive. Or I could wrap my identity around, I was a part of helping start a nonprofit that has served thousands of people. But if I do that, then and I base decisions based on how that feels and that praise, and that's not going to do good either. So for me, I think how I do it well is I try to stay grounded in my values and in my identity. And for me, first and foremost, my identity is as a dad and as a husband. How do I make sure that that's the priority that I'm basing my decisions off of? I try to stay rooted in my faith. I try to stay rooted in my military service, as in I get to serve others. Not that I've accomplished anything, but it's I've been given the ability to serve others and to try and go after that. So I think that's one of the ways that you do it well. The other is, I had a mentor at one point that he shared with me. He's Josh, when you go home, you should just take a minute before you walk through the door. He said, and it's just, and what he offered was, he's act like you're taking off your work coat and you're hanging it up, and you put on your dad coat and your a husband coat, and you put that coat on, you walk in the door, and you go after being a dad and a husband just as vigorously and with just as much energy as you went after the training you did that day. And so you walk through the door at 5 or 6 or 7 p.m. and you're on from that point until you go to bed, and you go at that the same way. So I think wrapping that up, one is making sure that I guess you stay humble and you root your identity in who you are and the things that matter the most to you, and the things that are, for me, that's my family, that's my faith, that's serving others. And then two, make sure that you do those things with just as much energy and vigor as you do your job.
Wow, that's really amazing.
Wow.
We have about 30 seconds left. So, Darren, Josh,
Yeah.
we're so proud of you guys for coming on the show and doing all these things and also talking to us about RHF and what it means. I think it's so critical that we got a really good glimpse as to the not just the what, but the why of why you guys created what you guys created, and the power and an impact that it has across this, the military community. I think it's so. Like I said, that I'm so moved. If I didn't have my military brains right now, I'd be balling right now. Or I would be balling right now.
Right. Yeah. It is a moving situation to be a part of. Do we have a moment for Josh to talk a little bit about what we want RHF to look like next year?
You got about 10 seconds. I'll give you 10 seconds.
Okay.
Well, I think that's easy. Darren, Sean, I think our hope is that we'll continue to figure out ways to provide programming and a place for families to connect, and that is through the military base, through units, through families. So with that's the 10-second version. I think long term we hope to grow Rick's Place to go to other military bases so we can do the same thing there.
Got to get it done. Darren Jeffrey is a founding board member of RHF and also the original course creator of and builder for the TV show American Ninja Warrior. Josh Woehr, U.S. Army Sergeant Major and White House Fellow. Thank you guys for being with us. Love you both.
All
right, thanks, Sean. Bye, Darren.
This is America's Heroes Group. We'll be right back.